That's the recording started now.
Is it? Okay.
Thank you very much. Can I welcome everybody along to our Audit and Scrutiny Committee the 17th of February. The councillors present are Councillors Barbara Grant, Charlie Gilbert, Annie Ireland, Jim Swift and Jim McLean. We may have Annie Ireland, sorry, I may have Angela Clowdry come in later. The officers are Linda Hutchison, Barbara Clark, Margaret McCrossan, John Burt, the Committee Services Officer, Anthony Jenkins, Fiona Muir, and from External Audit, Louisa Yule and Emma Rose Drummond. Welcome all. Can we now, is there any apology? Well, I'll take it there's no apologies unless...
No, I don't have any apologies, Chair.
Is there any declarations of interest?
No.
None whatsoever. We'll move on to number 3, Chair's report, which is very simple. After this meeting, we'll go into a self-evaluation again, as we did the last time, and we'll carry on from there, and then hopefully the last one. Moving on to item number 4, the Treasury Management Strategy Report of 2022-23, and I think it's Barbara that's speaking to this. The floor is yours. You're in mute, Barbara.
Mute.
That's me. Sorry. Hey, thank you. As part of the SITFA Treasury Management Code of Practice, this committee is responsible for ensuring effective scrutiny of the Treasury Management Strategy and recommending to Council its approval, including the Prudential and Treasury Indicators, the investment instruments for use as permitted investments, the list of investors and the policy on the repayment of loans fund advances. And it's primarily because of these requirements that I present this to you today. This report is a similar format to that of previous years with a few small amendments. So on page 15, I've provided you with a current high-level guidance on fiscal flexibilities that the Scottish Government have allowed us to address the current COVID pressures, as well as the discussions that COSLA are having with them to address the ongoing COVID pressures. These include the use of capital receipts and a loans fund repayment holiday, both of which will have an impact on the loans fund repayments charged from the year of application. In addition, I have added some additional affordability prudential indicators in section 6.4, which our Treasury advisors inform me are on a par with other authorities. However, from a borrowing and investment perspective, we're not doing anything different from what we did last year. And in summary, the rest of the report concentrates on the Council's borrowing and investment strategies and sets out parameters that help to monitor both. To allow the Council's borrowing to be controlled, we have set up Prudential Indicators which monitor the permissible borrowing and allow us to compare this against the actual gross debt. And from the table on page 16, you can see that we plan not to fully fund capital spend by external borrowing, but instead use Council's reserve balances as a temporary measure. This is considered both prudent and cost effective, as there's a cost to carry borrowing until it is used. And there's also the possibility of slippage with the capital programme, and therefore the full amount of borrowing may not be required. However, we also need to be careful that the Council takes advantage of borrowing externally at the current historically low rates. The Prudential Indicators have been set using the Council's 22-23 capital programme, and any movements in that programme spend will affect how well we keep within the limits set. And later on in the year, I'll come back and provide you with mid-year and year-end reports so that the position can be monitored. With regards to the investment strategy, this is controlled by establishing what types of investments we can make, and these are stated in Annex D. And in Annex E, the associated risks are explained. Our primary objectives are always security and liquidity, and this is achieved by not only controlling what type of investments we make, but who we make it with. And in this regard, I've listed out in Annex F a list of counterparties for you to approve today. The list also shows the investment limits to ensure that the Council has a diverse portfolio. The ratings of these bodies are monitored at least on a weekly basis, And if the institutions fall below our minimum rating level, then they would be removed from the list. Moving on to the rest of the report, it won't have escaped you that there's a lot of economic background information from our Treasury advisors, and this is provided to give you some context of not only the UK, but the global economic picture. Lastly, as in previous years, the final section of the report is on training. I'm happy to arrange for further training in this area with our Treasury advisors and would ask you to let me know through committee services if you would like this to be organised. I'm also happy to be contacted at any time should you want better understanding of any specific area within the report. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I think as far as training is concerned, with the elections so close, I think that ship might have sailed by now.
Okay.
Could I ask if any questions? Linda's got her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's just to confirm that Treasury management training is something that we're looking at in terms of induction for the new elected members, or for all elected members after the elections in May. So we're aware of a need to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Any questions for Barbara? Looks like you're doing quite well, Barbara, because it's got an extensive report.
Confused everyone.
And Linda still hasn't put her hand down. Right, there we go. Well, if there is no further questions, can we move on to the next item 5, the update and the withdrawal from the EU? Anthony Jenkins to speak to this, please.
Yep, good afternoon. Thank you for having me along again. So I would say the update report is quite generic in its coverage, and that's primarily just because it is still difficult to determine what impacts are EU exit related, which are COVID related. So while kind of recognising that there's supply chain, cost of living challenges evident across the UK as a whole, and that will probably continue across this year, I wouldn't confidently attribute any to EU exit and put them in a report up front. So I suppose the key EU exit related change since the last report, September last year, I believe, has been that the UK phased border measures for goods coming in from the EU. And so the first phase of that started on the 1st of January. There are further changes in July, September, November, hopefully outlined in the report. It is worth highlighting that there continues to be an exception in relation to goods coming to and from Ireland. That's the entire island, so including the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And that is while there are discussions ongoing between the UK and the EU on the Northern Ireland Protocol. There are further details in paragraph 12 on the kind of changes, and a wee bit of detail on what the kind of CITO and sanitary provisions are. Well, in the kind of background section, I mentioned that the government are planning on publishing a Brexit Freedoms Bill. I think that's the working title rather than what it will actually be called. It hasn't yet been published. The government did publish a booklet called The Benefits of Brexit on the 1st of February after I'd finished the report. This document is split into 3 sections. The first looking to outline the achievements of the UK following leaving the EU. It focuses on elements such as ending free movement, the change of passport colour, but also launching the review of the status and substance of EU laws and the move towards free ports in England and what I believe are going to be called green free ports in Scotland. The second section of that document looks at the UK government's sort of approach to reforming the regulation system. And the third section of that document looks at their vision statements, specifically looking at things such as levelling up science, data, technology, and becoming a global Britain. On the document, I have mentioned briefly the kind of price of goods, cost of living, as that was kind of one of the areas that was discussed the last time I was here, just highlighting the work that Mark's been doing and the support that's been given to citizens' advice, etc. locally. One thing that is different and has developed since the report is in relation to the shared prosperity fund. So there was very little detail in the report. And on the 2nd of February, the UK government launched their pre-launch guidance for the shared prosperity fund. which actually contradicts an element of the report and previous details of that fund. It's no longer going to be a competitive process. The UK government have announced that 2.6 billion will be divided across areas in the UK between the forthcoming financial year and March 2025, and the funds will be allocated through a funding formula. The amount or the formula used for East Hampshire has yet to be confirmed, but key themes for the funding are going to be building pride in place, supporting high quality skills and training, supporting pay, employment and productivity growth. They have confirmed through this pre-launch guidance that local authorities will be expected to be responsible for the planning and delivery of the Shared Prosperity Fund and the interventions. And to support that, we would have to provide a local investment plan for the UK government to sign off. There is further detail expected from the UK government in spring 2022. I appreciate that's a vague timeline. That is what they've put with the kind of Shared Prosperity Fund pre-launch guidance. And that will give fuller guidance as well as starting the process for those local development plans as well. And currently, I think the UK government are looking to get in contact with relevant people in the council across the UK, councils across the UK, sorry, to provide that detail. I don't know who that will be for East Hampshire, but happy to report back later on that. And I think that's it in the Shared Prosperity Fund. So the last thing really I wanted to touch on from the report is the kind of EU settlement scheme and citizens' rights. I don't have anything significant further to add to the report, but I would highlight that there's not any further news in relation to the judicial review by the independent monitoring authorities yet. I've double checked that this week. It's something I fully intend to keep an eye on, because I think that will be a key area for continued advice for people in our area who are pre-settled rather than settled under a settled scheme, because the kind of background to the judicial review is that the Independent Monitoring Authority have launched this because the Home Office have outlined that if someone has pre-settled status, which means they hadn't lived in the UK for more than 5 years prior to December 2020, their pre-settled status would end at a certain point and they wouldn't be notified of this to apply for settled status. And in theory, they would therefore be subject to immigration controls and maybe not necessarily able to access benefits, etc. So if the judicial review doesn't go in favour of the Independent Monitoring Authority or provides more clarity, I believe it would be prudent of us to update our messaging on the council website and working with partners to ensure that those with pre-settled status are aware of the need to apply for settled status at the end of the period they've agreed with the Home Office. And I think that's it, unless there's any questions.
I think there's a question from Barbara, if she can remember what it was, because she'd have handed it a long time ago. Barbara.
Thank you, Chairman. Today I got a communication from British Telecom about the increase in mobile charges now that we are no longer in the EU. Now, it seems to me pretty ridiculous, because they're not actually having to pay any more for anything. It's all there. It's been done before. Have you had any word about the increase in charges from BT because we're no longer in the EU charges? I'm talking about if you're phoning abroad. I mean, there must be plenty of people in our patch who've got, say, relatives or in Europe and all the rest of it. You know, they're going to have to pay more money just because we're in the EU. I mean, there's no reason why they should pay more. I mean, it's not as if they're having to put in equipment or anything. It's all there. It's just a question of somebody making a bigger profit. Maybe you know something, Anthony.
It's not one I'm aware of. I'm aware, but we'll have to look into it. I am aware that UK-based mobile companies no longer have to cap or stop roaming charges for their customers travelling to the EU. And that's something that was protected through the EU directives that no longer apply. So I do know that Vodafone and a few other mobile companies that if you were to go on holiday in the EU, you'd have to pay heightened rates, whereas that wasn't the case when the UK was an EU member. But I'll certainly look into the BT thing and see if we can find out any more.
I mean, there's no real reason for it. If you know what I mean, it's not as if they've got to put in more infrastructure or anything like that. There's nothing physical, as it were, that needs to be done. Somebody just needs to flick a different switch. So I would be keen to know how many people think that this is an acceptable piece of work, or is anybody actually pushing back on this one to say this is all quite unnecessary? Thank you.
Thank you. Annette, do you have something? You're in mute, Annette.
I was frantically Googling there. It seems it wasn't included in the Brexit deal, and that's why the roaming charges have gone up after Brexit. No, it's a couple of questions, Anthony. You know, I'm always got a few questions with this paper, but it was just as I was reading through it, the money advice and rights team. I know that they're going to have to take on quite a lot with the increased cost of living, and but I did notice, and I thought it was really good that they've now got a fuel poverty worker that has been brought on board to try and help residents. It did say that it's temporary. Do you know how temporary that is? Because I don't see the situation changing anytime soon. But I just wondered how temporary that fuel poverty worker was. You answered part of my question. I think you touched on the white paper. I'd written down what are the direct benefits to East Wren, and I note that you did say that it's now going to be the Shared Prosperity Fund is going to be coming directly without that bidding system now in place. With that in mind, what way does that Shared Prosperity Fund go towards replacing the EU structural funds that were there previously? So that's my second question. And let me have just one look. No, I think that was it. I think that actually, Anthony, for once, I've just got those two, because I looked back at the last meeting, you'd answered fully a lot of the previous questions I'd asked on this paper. But if you could give me any information on those, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll get clarification on the level of temporary nature, sorry, the temporary nature of the post for fuel poverty workers. So I'll chase that up and come back to you. And probably best to get a kind of written response in the Shared Prosperity Fund and how that will replace EU structural funds. I think it's all going to tie into the levelling up agenda, to be blunt, from what I can read. So the intention would be that, from what I can gather, that councils will take on the bids from enterprises, as well as being able to use it in-house and determine what kind of structural and community benefiting programmes would be suitable. I know there was kind of talk of participatory budget and also being useful for that kind of thing, but I'll look to get as much information and provide a kind of written response on both of those areas for you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, did you have a question, or has it been already answered? No, I take it he doesn't have a question. Any further questions then? We don't all rush. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the internal audit plan from October to December 2021. Can I look see Fiona?
Right, thank you. So this is the internal audit plan progress report for the quarter to 31 December 21. 4 audit reports relating to Plan 21-22 audit work have been issued in the quarter to 31 December. Appendix 3 gives details of the 3 reports relating to 21-22, which have been issued and responses received since the last progress report. These reports were the housing repairs audit. There were a total of 17 recommendations made in this report. 1 of these was rated high risk, 6 medium risk, and the remaining 10 recommendations were rated as low risk. The high risk recommendation was in relation to lack of contract monitoring for housing repair jobs, and management have agreed in their response to carry out random sampling on a monthly basis to ensure compliance with immediate effect. Secondly, the schools cluster audit. There were a total of 15 recommendations made in this audit report. 6 of these recommendations were classified as medium risk and the remaining 9 recommendations as low risk, and all recommendations were accepted by management. And thirdly was the environment follow-up audit, and a full copy of this report has already been circulated to members. For fraud, irregularity and contingency time, there were no new matters dealt with using fraud or contingency time during the quarter to 31 December. And finally, a brief update on the audit plan. In Appendix 1, you will see the annual audit plan. Due to unforeseen circumstances leading to a reduced number of audit days available, it is very unlikely that the full audit plan will be completed. Currently, the audits that will provide as much assurance to management on the main systems are being prioritised, and these are expected to be completed. A further update will be provided to Audit Committee in due course. Subject to any questions, committee is asked to note internal audits, progress report for the quarter, and indicate if they wish any reports to be circulated to members.
Thanks very much, Fiona. Does anyone have any questions this time? Do any members wish any reports to be circulated or find out any more? I see Linda with her hand up.
It was just to say, Chair, that the environment follow-up report that has been provided to me by internal audit, but I haven't yet circulated. It'll come out to you shortly, though. Thank you.
Thanks very much. No hands up at all. Well, all I can do is say that's us finished for the day. This is the last. Well, sorry. Sorry, Margaret.
Yes, I was just going to say on the last point in the audit plan that we are liaising with the external auditors to make sure that the work that we focus on between now and the end of the year is in line with what the external auditors would like to rely on to give them the required assurance to complete their year-end audit on time. So there is that link up. So we'll make sure that that doesn't impact on the year-end assurance position.
Thank you, Margaret. I think you're still the hand up now, so I think you've stopped talking. So at that rate, that's us finished for now. Can I thank everyone? Sorry, Jim's his hand up now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Please accept my apologies. I was trying to get an answer out of Gillian on the phone there about a planning matter. Right. As regards Barbara's issue, do you know what? There are lots of other providers out there, Barbara, and not everybody charges roaming. So feel free to change your provider.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Thank you very much. But
and the other thing is, if people are abroad, most people will be staying in an area where they can access Wi-Fi. So most people will do these calls through a social media platform or a communication platform that will cost them nothing.
you see what I know about it all? Zero. Thank you.
No worries. Take care. Bye.
Right. Thanks, Jim. Any further comments at all? If not, thank you very much for attending for everybody, and the committee will just stay on and we'll carry on with the